Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast, where we share the real stories of workplace transformation. And now, here are your hosts, Will Stewart and Chris Patton.
Welcome to the Eternal ROI podcast. Good to have everybody watching and listening along. I'm Will Stewart, joined as always by the CEO of His Way at Work, Chris Patton. Hey, Chris.
Will, it's a great day, man.
It is. Fantastic.
It is a great day. We have got a guest on today that is I consider a friend, someone that I have observed from various perspectives, and it's just fun to talk to him.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have a good time today. It's Brandon West from PHOS Creative in I can't even hardly say it, Gainesville, Florida. Go Dogs.
That was beautiful.
Welcome to the show. Good to have you on.
Hey, man. So glad to be with you guys.
So for those who don't know who you are, give us that elevator pitch. What's the 30-second spiel of what PHOS Creative is and who you are?
Yeah. My name's Brandon West, and I am excited and passionate about running a digital marketing agency that's headquartered in Gainesville, Florida. What we're super excited about and love doing is helping to restore dignity, purpose, and freedom to the lives of women and children who have been impacted by extreme poverty and sex trafficking. But the way that we're doing that is by helping clients around the U.S. to grow the right way online.
Wow. So that's going to take some unpacking right there.
A lot of unpacking.
You know, it was funny. Will and I were talking earlier, and I had been on the website, kind of cyber stalking a little bit, even though I know you wanted to know a little bit more. And it was interesting to me to see right off the bat, you've got your mission or your purpose that speaks to the design. And then right below that, in 5 times the font size, is this idea of impacting women and children in poverty and sex trafficking. How is that? That's more granular than I've ever seen a business go right off the bat on the website. I love it, but definitely at some point, if not now, at some point, I want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Good.
It's been a journey, right? When you start a business completely focused on your what you do. It's the clearest thing. You've been doing it. You have a passion for it, something like that. And so it starts off being a very what-based company. As you grow, you start thinking, okay, how am I going to do this uniquely? How am I going to build a team around it? How am I going to build processes around it? And then eventually you start asking that deeper question of why. When I started my agency back in 2013, I liked building websites. That's what I did. And so I was like, oh, I could build websites all day long. I was a teacher, so I was making $18,000 a year teaching. I was broke as a joke. My wife and I were living on women, infant, children checks and stamps from our local government. We were on the local government's healthcare system. My mom would come up and buy us groceries. It was the only thing that kept us alive. Our electricity got turned off 1 or 2 times because I couldn't pay the bills. People in our church would just hand us $100 check or $100 bills after church sometimes. And those were the things that helped us get by. And then I felt God saying, hey, I'm giving you a new opportunity. And it was about building websites. I helped my church to build a website for free. Somebody found out about that, was like, I have a business. Can you help me build one? I was like, yeah, $300. So I got $300. I was like, man, this is awesome. Then another friend heard about it and they were like, hey, I'm starting a orthodontist practice down in Wellington, Florida. Can you help me? And I was like, yeah, $3,000. Then I was like, this is a business. This is a business.
Yeah.
And I went to 5 men in my life, the elders in my church. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this business. What do you think? And they were all unanimous that I should stop teaching, surrender my $18,000 a year salary and start a business. And to those out there who are thinking about starting a business, I can resonate with how freaking hard it is to give up any level of stable income. As an entrepreneur, as a family man, I had my second kid on the way. And the idea of starting a business was really, really scary. And but with their unanimous counsel, I decided to do so. It's been almost 9 years now. I have not personally built a website in 6 years. So there's also kind of this entrepreneurship journey that says, what happens when your personal why inside of it changes over time? And for me, I kind of went through a big realization about 2 or 3 years ago where I realized that what I started this business to do, I didn't do any longer. And it's a moment as an entrepreneur on a journey towards purpose for you to say, then why am I still passionate about what I'm doing? What am I called to inside of this new thing? And that's where the concept of business as a ministry came from, and really where that positioning statement that I just shared with you was born from.
Yeah, and that's so unique because there's so many businesses that start that don't have such a targeted why. Like to your point, I mean, it's maybe it's a it's something a little bit broader, but not so narrow. What was the first aha moment where you said, okay, this is not just a business to make websites. There's a bigger purpose here. God wants me to do more than just, maybe go to church, check that box and then go to work and be the CEO web designer dude, check that box. What was that aha moment? Was there someone in your life? Were there mentors? What happened?
Well, I think you can actually see the progression really well in our mission statements at PHOS. About a year and a half into the company, we hired a consultant to come in and help us develop our first ever mission, vision, and values for the company. And what's interesting is since that time, 7 years ago now, our mission has probably changed 4 times, maybe 5. Our vision has changed almost as many times, but our core values have never changed. The behaviors that we celebrate here at the company are still identical, but our why, our understanding of why we exist, who we targeting, what that looks like, has really clarified over time. Our first mission statement ever was to make the internet a better place by helping companies look good and get found online. And honestly, it helped us for about 6 months until I realized if I die and somebody wrote that mission statement on my gravestone, you might as well come back across it with like a can of red spray paint and just write life wasted. Most mission statements for a company, if you could write those over your life, like, would you walk into the presence of our Father and feel proud of the work that you had done? 40, 45, 50 hours a week of my life are spent in this business. If I can't see some sort of eternal fruit and eternal ROI in the middle of it, then like, what's the point? What's the point? And this is where people start getting into the mindset of, man, if I want to do ministry, it has to be in a church, because I can't see ministry found in the middle of the work that I'm doing 40 to 60 hours a week. Something changed for me 3 years ago, though. I joined a group. Chris and I know it well. It's the first time that we met in person was actually at a urinal at this conference.
I wasn't going that far.
I thought we were transparency, vulnerability,
hey man, bring it
personality.
on. Bring it on. Yes, sir.
We're at this conference, and it's through an organization called C12, fantastic Christ-centered organization helping business leaders to pursue peer advisory in forums that meet on a month-to-month basis. And I remember joining this group and thinking, I run my business for the glory of God. If you would have asked me how, when we first started, it was just excellence, right? Oh, that's what you do. You just do. If you're building the best product and doing it in the best way, like, you're the company that's most glorifying the Lord. And I believe that. Martin Luther speaks to this whole idea of like a Christian shoemaker doesn't need to write a Jesus fish on the side of it for God to be glorified, that God is glorified through excellence. And I believe that. But I think the thing I was questioning with is there more? Could there be more? Could there be not just God glorifying excellence, but God honoring and gospel promoting and kingdom minded work being done as the bedrock of the organization? This whole idea of C12's mission, a great business for a greater purpose. And we started to fill out things like His Way at Work provides a care matrix. Who are we actually targeting? Who are we targeting? And those 5 areas are our team. I think that's the first step. I think that's the first light bulb that goes on for people. When you realize I don't just exist to make boxes. I don't just exist to put out my product and service. The first light bulb that goes on is you realize I exist for people. And the first person you choose is the people you work with all day long. I exist for my team. Cool. I exist for their families. That's some multiplicative ministry opportunities right there. The families of the people. I exist for our clients. I exist for our vendors and suppliers, and I exist for our local and global community. that's a big transformation. Last year, though, we asked a brave question. Our word of the year here at PHOS is bravery. Our annual primary objective is braving the uncharted, going through all kinds of new stuff, big stuff, ministry-wise, service-wise, organizational-wise, operations-wise. But last year, we asked a really brave question. If you would have asked anybody on my team 6 months ago, what's the vision statement of PHOS? The new vision statement of PHOS was 25 team members serving clients in 25 states, supporting children through Compassion International with 25 children by the end of the year 2025. Branding mastery. Just sounds so good. You put that on a shirt, put it on a hat, okay? Will, you've been all about hats today, okay? Like,
Oh, yeah.
like put it on the hat. You could have put that on. It's branding mastery. But we asked this question, what do we actually care about? If we're sitting down at our annual planning session at 2025 going, okay, guys, now's the time. Did we hit our vision statement? And somebody's like, sorry, Brandon, we only have 24 people. We only have 23 children, and we only serve clients in 20 states. Would we have been looking around the room going, what the heck, guys? How do we miss this? How do we miss this? And the answer was a prevailing, probably not. Probably not. And so we realized, if we believe in this whole concept of business as a ministry, we have to be really clear on who we're targeting. And that's where, Will, this clarity came from. We watched a video where another very business as a ministry minded man shared that as he got into the scriptures and prayed about his vision for business as a ministry, God asked him this question: what are the fields that you've already harvested from that God would have you reinvest in new and big ways? And so we just started asking as a leadership team, where have we seen God show up already? Where have we already seen eternal ROI in the things that we've invested in? And so we looked back and we said, man, God's blessed the efforts that we've done in helping children be rescued from extreme poverty. Man, God has blessed the efforts that we've done and invested in to see women and their lives impacted from sexual exploitation and sex trafficking in the past. And so we just said, this is the vision. You want to know what the vision of PHOS is? It's more of where God's already shown up. I think with visioneering, we often think it's something new, it's something big. It's like, we got to change directions. We got to pivot way over here if we're going to come up with this new vision. Like, what if the visions that God has for our company are going deeper into the places he's already called us in the past? And as we came out of that journey, restoring dignity, purpose, and freedom to the lives of women and children impacted by extreme poverty. And it came with two big BHAGs, two big, as a pastor corrected me recently, two big, holy, audacious goals. And those two BHAGs are for PHOS to sponsor a child, not only for every single team member that we have here at PHOS, but for every single client that we serve as well.
Wow.
And then secondly, to see 5 PHOS care centers spun up all around the world. Not that PHOS manages, not that PHOS creates. PHOS isn't a nonprofit, but we want to come alongside of other gospel-minded, fiduciary responsible nonprofits who are ready to start a new residential care center for women and children impacted by extreme poverty and sex trafficking all around the world. And what's crazy is even in the past 2 years, we've already started our first one. And then the next few weeks, women will move in there for the first time into a safe place in North Central Florida. Whereas for the past 2 years, we've been telling them no place exists for you. They go safe in a few weeks. And so God's already shown up and shown himself to be faithful.
Congratulations.
That's so cool.
Incredible.
Yeah. I love how you're taking it from words on a website to actually things that can be done and action items that can be done, throughout a year, a quarter, however you gauge things. How do you get buy-in from your team? Because someone who might be listening and they might be like, man, this sounds incredible. I want to do this. I want my, I've got my mission that I'm thinking that God wants me to head toward. It sounds like, your team is all in. Everybody is like listening and like wanting to engage with this. How do you, maybe it's not, maybe it's something different. Well, how do you get people buying in and believing in this whole mission?
Yeah, honestly, this is where the word like culture comes into play. So often we think that culture is having the coolest ping pong table or having the coolest Pac-Man video game thing in your lobby, and you're like, oh, what an amazing culture. And people are like, yeah, it's a fun game to play, but man, I feel like I'm not valued every single day when I walk in this office. And I feel that way because I'm so disconnected from what we do. I have no emotional tie to why we do it. We talk about purpose, but then the next thing that comes up is, why is this thing red? How can we be in the red still on this one thing? And what's clarified in a moment like that is your culture. This buy-in that you're pleading for with your people is a lie. It was interesting. I talked about the brandability of our previous vision statement. We never have put our mission, vision, or values on a hat, on a shirt, on the wall, never. Because what happens in a moment like that is a company, a leader, a leadership team is willing to relegate their leadership over buy-in to placement. Instead of buy-in, you place it. And somebody says, what's your mission? And you go, it's to make the world a better place. And it's like, what are your core values? What core values did you live out today? And they're like trying to look down the hallway and be like, I lived out passion. That's what it was. It was passion. You're like, no, you freaking did not. It's like, no.
Just saying it louder does not mean passion.
That's what we do is we relegate buy-in to placement, and we cannot do that. What a leadership's primary job within an organization is guarding purpose. And the only way that you can guard it is by creating constant buy-in. You can't relegate buy-in even to a single moment and say, well, once a year, I'll get on stage and I'll reread our mission statement and I'll tell some stories. You got to tell those stories on a weekly, daily, quarterly, all the rhythms have to be implemented. For us, one of the ways that we duplicate our culture here at PHOS, not just around purpose, but around values that drive behaviors that drive us towards a mission in pursuit of a long-term vision. Every single team meeting, and I'm telling you, we have 21 people on the team. We're probably going to be at almost 30 by the end of this year. It's getting really inefficient to do, and it is central to our culture. At the beginning of every single team meeting, we go around, I round robin it around the table, and I call on somebody. I say, hey, Caroline, here on our team. Hey, what's PHOS's, just remind us here as a team, what's PHOS's mission, vision, and values? And they share them. And then I turn to them on camera, I look them in the eye, and I say, thank you for living those out here at PHOS. And then I say, our 5 values, leadership, creativity, love, integrity, community, tell me where in the past week you've seen those displayed in person. It's called our shout outs. And no joke, we spend about, on average, about 40 minutes doing this in the meeting. There will be people in tears in the meeting, just crying. And people are trained on day 1 for this. I listened to a Patrick Lencioni podcast recently. He was talking about, what do you give oxygen to in your company? And he was describing these different things that people give oxygen to in the first few hours of joining a company. And one of my favorite ones was within the first hour of arriving at a company, part of their onboarding procedure involved an ergonomist coming next to you and teaching you at your station how to use your chair properly. Yeah, welcome to our company. We're so excited that you're here for our mission. Let me show you how to sit properly. Like, what's that communicating? First of all, you're an idiot.
You're an idiot.
And secondly, and secondly, what happens to them? All the oxygen stripped out of the room. All the oxygen stripped out of your purpose. The first 3 hours of starting our company is sitting down with me, every single person, and we walk through our mission, our vision, our values. Here's what we're about. Here's our story. Here's how we got here. Here's how God led us to this. Here's what business as a ministry looks like. I want you to unpack it. I want you to know that. I want you to embrace it. I want you to be passionate about it because you started with it. And it's what we gave oxygen to. It's the gasoline that we pour on this fire. So for 40 minutes in our team meetings, every single week, we go around the table and we just share our values and the mnemonic, the system, the method, that we use every single week is the same. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Chris on the team for XYZ core value. When you did such and such, it was such a great example of it, and it had this outcome and impact on our team, with our clients, or with our mission. When we get together on a quarterly basis, it's a 2-hour long meeting where I lay out, again, here's what we're about. Here's our purpose. Here's our why. We do a short devotional. It's 10, 15 minutes long. It goes through a scripture. I put it on the screen in case somebody doesn't have a Bible or they're not a Christian, but it's a life and leadership moment and impact, purpose driven, inside of the company, on brand statement that speaks to somebody's life, leadership, family, their calling here at PHOS. And we get to unpack through storytelling our mission in action and celebrating the accomplishment of our vision along the way, all in the context of behavior-driven, culture-centered, core values, living operations here at PHOS.
That's awesome. That's such a different experience than many companies have. And just the taking values and actually living them and having them integrated into your company is so important. Have you ever had pushback? Have you ever had people say, this is dumb, I hate this, why are we doing this, and what's been your response, and how have you loved people through that?
That's the key word, bro. That's the key word, love, in the middle of all of that. I had a great conversation with somebody on our team. He started about 6 months ago, and during onboarding, again, we get through that 3 hours, and at the end of it, he turns to me and says, may I ask you a question? I'm like, that's what this is for, bro. Let's go. What questions you got? And he said, do you require everybody on the team here to be a Christian? And I'm thinking, didn't you want to ask that like before you said yes to starting here? And I turned to him, I said, bro, no, not at all. And he was like, whew, okay, good, whew, good. And he said, and I said, well, why do you ask? And he said, well, last night I was prepping for my first day here. I was talking with my wife, and she turned to me at one point. She said, you're not here right now. Where are you? And he said, I'm already at PHOS in my head. She said, why? What's got you so up all in your head about this? And he said, when I sent your website to my family, the first question that they had is, didn't you see Jesus on their about page? Like, what are you doing about that, son? He said, yes, Mom, I looked through the website before I applied there. Of course I saw it. Well, what are you doing about it? And I asked him, what did you do about that? And he said, if I strip out everything political and historical about Christianity, I'm still forced to deal with a man who existed in the first century. And if your mission statement is to exemplify the love of Jesus in the marketplace, full mission, to be a place team members never want to leave, clients can't do without, the world is better for it, and in so doing, exemplify the love of Jesus. He said, if that's your mission statement here, and I'm still forced to deal with this man named Jesus, what I see in him is a love that I'd be willing to display to the world. And I said, that's why you're here, man. That's why you're here. I said, you have such a heart for people. That's why we want you on this team. You need to know we exist for a greater purpose, an eternal ROI, an eternal purpose here at PHOS. But your role in that, with where you're at right now in your life, is to love people. And we're going to do that just the same way that Jesus did. So that's just a great example of what it looks like to run a business as a ministry in the context of an unbelieving person or people joining your team. And by the end of the week, his first week here, I asked him, how's your first week here? How's the job been? And I expected him to say, I love my job or something like that. And he said, I'm so excited to be a part of this mission. Like he's already identifying with the mission of PHOS, even in the first few days of being there. It comes up as well with clients, though. It comes up with prospects, and we've heard the stories. We've heard the stories around the country of businesses who stand for ministry or faith, or have a statement of faith or a statement of purpose, and who wind up being critiqued for it. I'll never forget a story I heard from David Green. He's the CEO of Hobby Lobby. He told a story of a lawyer who walked into his office once and was concerned about a new initiative that they were spinning up that was going to potentially put them at risk from a legal standpoint regarding business as a ministry and faith. And he turned to the lawyer and he said, we take risks every day in business, every day. Buy this thing, hire this person, acquire this company, take on this big OPEX or CAPEX or go after this, or what just happened to our margins? We got to go and do this huge thing, and we're going to fire people. We're going to hire people. Huge risks every single day. And he turned to the lawyer and he said, if we're willing to take those risks, why would we not take the one risk that has more eternal fruitfulness, opportunities at hand than any other risk that we've ever created? Any risk that we've ever taken on here. And the lawyer just looked at him and started to weep in his door. And he walked away, and he never heard from that lawyer again.
Wow.
That's what's at stake here. That's what's at stake. And when we lean in and when we're faithful in those hard times, like that's where we see God show up. We were asked by a client recently to create something. We're a creative agency. We do marketing and branding and website design and digital marketing and help clients grow online. And they came to us and said, here's the way we want to grow. Here's what we want you to create. And I want every single person here to be seen and valued, but there are some things that as a creative agency, as a marketing and promotions company, that I can't support nor promote in the marketplace. And so we had to say, hey, that's not something that we can produce. And it led to extremely challenging seasons of navigating with that client until it wound up in a client termination, and loving that person along the way and saying, here's why, and here's what we stand for, was one of the most challenging things I've ever had to do in business. But what fruit came from it? Multiple conversations with people on my team who wanted to continue that conversation internally here at PHOS and learn about our why and why do we stand for this. And now I'm doing coffees and one-on-ones and hangouts with people on the team, getting to go into the gospel because they saw us stand for this. They saw us be resolute and faithful in a season of challenge, tribulation, and trial.
So good. There's always risk. I love that point, because sometimes we try to mitigate the risk when it comes to living out our faith in the workplace, where it's like zero risk, Yep. And that's such a great point. How have you seen? You talked about how kind of the greater community has changed outside of the workplace. How have you seen this, embracing your faith in the workplace change? I guess it's a two-part question. Change you? How has it made you a better leader, father, husband, that? And then on the other side, how's it changed employees and your culture?
Rewinding again to a year and a half ago here at PHOS, we're at that point 7.5 years into the history of the company. We have a business as a ministry mindset. We're growing. We've duplicated leaders. We have mid-level managers. Like, wow, this is good. This is like growing and it's so awesome. I looked back on a note a year and a half ago that I had created in my phone another year and a half ago. It was a note in my phone called Things Brandon Shouldn't Do. And it was like 8 different areas of the company, things I shouldn't be doing that I was doing with sales and with operations and with HR and payroll and all those kind of things. And the list had 85 different items on it. That's how many items were on this list 3 years ago. Things that I'm currently doing that I shouldn't be doing as we scale this business. Well, a year and a half ago now, I looked back on the list and I asked, what have I changed? What do I not do anymore? And I had delegated away 84% of the things that were on that list. 84% of the things I had been doing a year and a half before that, I was no longer doing. And most of our leadership training would look at a moment like that and applaud the leader and say, oh, well done. What fantastic leadership. Oh, you've duplicated yourself in the marketplace. You have delegated away. You have focused on your strengths. Oh, well done. And sure, maybe there was a certain amount of that sentiment going on in my heart when I did that look back. But the big thing I was struggling with that moment was, if I don't do what I once did, what's my role in this company?
Yeah.
And I lost myself for a season last year at PHOS. I lost myself. I couldn't see what my role was any longer. We had built up this machine now that was getting into a predictable success flow model, and I didn't know what my role was. And as I began to be transparent and vulnerable with my leadership team here at PHOS, they were clear. They knew what it was. They said, Brandon, your role is clear. Go be the visionary. Go be the visionary. Like, figure out what we're supposed to do. And it was the embracing of that had me go be willing to do the deep, hard work of self-evaluation. I forget who it was. Benjamin Franklin. He said that there are 3 things that are hard in life: steel, diamonds, and knowing oneself.
True. Good.
What this journey of embracing business as a ministry has done is force me to know myself. I have another note on my phone. It's called Me. I have like 1,500 notes on my phone. I take a lot of notes on my phone. And one of them's called me. And everything I learn about myself, I just put in there. And I review it irregularly to ensure that I'm understanding who God is uniquely calling me to be. I read a book called Unique, Y-O-U, Unique by Will Mancini. One of the activities in the book, it took me like a year and a half to do this book. There's so many activities in this book. One of them has you boil your personal mission statement down into 2 words. 2 words.
Wow. That's incredible.
Did I lose you guys?
We lost you.
Back?
Yeah, we lost you. We had.
I thought everybody had frozen.
Yeah.
Will Mancini's book.
Yeah.
Will Mancini's book, Unique, has you boil your mission statement, your personal mission statement, down into 2 words. And what I've embraced over the past 3 years of being on this deep business as ministry journey is that my 2 words are pastoring leaders. It's the combination of 18 years of work that I have in the church, being a worship leader, and the past 9 years of being an entrepreneur. And God saying, hey, I'm calling you into the marketplace to go and pastor leaders, changing stages into pulpits and bringing the gospel to secular forums and contexts. And God's blessed that. And I surrendered my 18-year career of worship leading last October to invest in this. And I've seen God bless that choice. That's how it's affected me. That's how it's affected my leadership, even over my family. They're watching all of this. Our team here at PHOS, last year at our anniversary, I wanted to roll out a system that we could use at PHOS for measuring and celebrating our mission and completing it here at PHOS. It took me 6 months of design and planning, but I had one of our actual clients produce for us this, we called the PHOS light wall, and it hangs in the lobby. It's a 10-foot wide by 5-foot tall by 4-inch deep box that hangs on the wall. It has 267 light bulb sockets in it that spell out the word light. PHOS is the Greek word for light. And what we do is every single time there's a mission moment at PHOS, we all gather in the lobby and someone takes out a light bulb, screws it in, and we shout and clap and celebrate and scream, yes! And somebody goes and there's this journal underneath and they open it up and they write in the bulb number, the date, and what the mission moment was. As a forever reminder of us working together and collaborating to see our mission happen in the community. 5 things that turn on a bulb, a new team member starting, part of our mission, growing up, a new mission partner, a client starting with us, a new child sponsored through Compassion International, someone on the team or through the company starting their relationship with Jesus, or anything else deemed worthy of fulfilling our mission. And so this is part of how it guards what we're doing. It focuses on our purpose on a daily basis, engages them, creates that buy-in, but changes their vision of the company and their understanding of their work inside of it. When we rolled out that new vision statement, first thing I did was go to the longest standing person on our team and read it to them and say, is this who we've been and who God's calling us to be? Because you know it better than anybody else. You've been here through all of it. When I read her that new vision statement, she started crying, weeping in the conference room. And I thought, we've nailed it. It's having people be engaged, reinvest, stay connected, and it's guarding our purpose here at PHOS. That's how it's changed.
I love that. That's so good. What would you say to the business owner, business leader who says, I feel like God's starting to talk to me. I'm listening to this episode. Man, Brandon's awesome. I love what he's doing. I want that for our company. Where in the world do I start?
Yeah. The journey that you're trying to start is one of purpose, mission, and eternal ROI. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned in this is we take very small steps to take the next step in moving forward with this. People have inspired me along the way. You hear these big stories. Oh, they're doing this really cool thing. They're doing this huge initiative. They've started their own nonprofit. They've raised $1 billion. You're just like, what do I do? Take one brave step towards embracing that more God-centered, business as a ministry, people-oriented company. One small brave step down a long journey to embrace purpose in your company. Again, when we're trying to create or resurrect even some of these things inside of a business for the first time ever as we form a business, or for the first time ever in a long-standing business that hasn't had this mindset, or we're trying to resurrect something that used to be and has failed for the past year, 3 years, 5 years, 15 years, I think the first thing that we like to do is implement things that are fun. Like I mentioned, we'll go build our own putt-putt course out back. Like culture and purpose and people orientation doesn't start just with fun. People can't move forward with your vision for people mission unless they see themselves as the first people that do that. I think it was Jim Collins who said, like, your business will never be anything more than it is for your people. That's where it has to start. People have to feel cared for first. At PHOS, we started the PHOS Care Team. And the PHOS Care Team is a voluntary team, and doesn't increase your pay here. It doesn't even necessarily reduce the amount of work on your plate load. It's a voluntary thing people participate in. We have 4 or 5 people on the team now, and their mission is to not just do the care of PHOS, do the ministry of PHOS, is to create a culture of ministry and care at PHOS that happens inspired by these people, fed by these people, but winds up existing in the whole business. In the past year and a half of starting this, we have seen more fruitfulness when it comes to care and ministry than I've ever seen. I walk in now to the company, and again, we have 21 people. It's not a huge team. It's not a micro team. But I'll walk in and I'll hear this story of something that happened, or watch something that happened that had nothing to do with it, and it blows my mind. A couple of weeks ago, small thing that just speaks to care. Somebody on the team mentioned in a Monday stand-up meeting, "What'd you do over the weekend?" "Oh, I went down to the spring in Florida, and I saw manatees, and I realized I'm in love with manatees." When we came in Wednesday to the office, she came in and there were 2 stuffed manatees sitting on her desk from somebody on the team who just heard that, said, "I could show love to this person. I could show care to this person just by buying them." I said, "Wow, somebody on the team bought them 2 stuffed manatees." And somebody on the team clarified for me, it wasn't 2 people. It wasn't one person who bought 2 manatees. It was 2 people who at the same exact time were compelled to do the same exact thing, and came in and delivered to this person the same exact love moment. I was like,
Wow.
that's 10% of our team who were inspired just when somebody said, "I love manatees, do something loving." It's those small moments. Where does purpose-driven, care-centered, people-focused, business as a ministry-fueled mindsets come from? Micro moments where we say, what does the love of Christ look like in this moment? A radical, over the top. I want, like, we use this word extra, like, bro, that was so extra. Like, it was above and beyond. You really shouldn't have done it. I wrote a blog recently on the PHOS website. You can check it out. It was called What Does a People First Culture Require? And it's about this whole idea of extra. Like, be extra. Be extra. Do something extra at your company that would communicate to somebody, I went above and beyond, and I did something highly intentional, maybe over the top, because you're really important. Small steps, brave small steps down a long journey of purpose.
I love that. I love how your team is living it out without, someone cracking the whip from on high. It's not like, it's not a memo from Brandon. It's like, you guys remember, that's so wonderful when it's organic. And I'm sure that's such a great, moment for you to be like, they're getting it.
Yeah. But at the same time, Brandon, this is not stated, you didn't state it this way, but you trained those employees through the 40 minutes every week, pointing to each other. You lived out this core value when you did this. You're making them think about others.
Yeah.
You didn't demand it. You didn't come in and crack the whip on it, but you've put a process in place that builds habit and just causes them to see each other differently, right? They're paying closer attention. And then that manifests when a somewhat throwaway comment comes out, "I'm just in love with manatees." I can act on that.
Yeah.
And it's not so that somebody will say, "Hey, you lived out the core value because you threw a stuffed animal on her desk." It's just the mindset. You're training that heart and training them to see each other. And I can hear business owners and leaders listening saying, "Well, my employees don't give each other gifts." Well, no, because we got to have these other things in place that are building culture in small increments over months and years, right? That doesn't happen overnight. You didn't walk in, throw a vision statement on the wall, and everybody suddenly goes, ah, let's start giving stuff to each other, right? It's those small things over time. And I can guarantee you the first time you did the 40-minute deal, and you're not measuring 40, but you know what I mean. The first time was kind of awkward. The 5th time was a little bit wonky.
Yes.
And around the 10th time, somebody said something that didn't quite fit the pattern, and you had to say, well, let's rephrase that. Let's reframe that back to what they did this in a positive way. You know, it's those kind of things along the way that manifest in this kind of a situation you just described.
Well, I think one of the harsh realities of what you just shared is the CEO who goes, my people don't give gifts to one another on the team. Part of the harsh reality is it's because you don't give gifts on the team. What is celebrated and what is seen is what will be repeated in a company. What is seen and what is celebrated will be what is repeated in a company. So whatever you want to see repeated, they better see and you better celebrate it. And that's what part of those shout outs are for. I love the analogy that you're so dead on, bro. You try and implement something new in a company, especially if it's people oriented, especially if there's a vulnerability and an authenticity to the moment or to the initiative that you're trying to implement, it will always be awkward. Okay. Jay Adams, he's considered the father of biblical counseling. He in one of his books, he gave this analogy. He said, you ever tried ice skating? That's really awkward, super awkward. You go out there, you're just like, it's as if you don't even at first you're just trying to walk with ice skates on.
Just stay upright.
It's the worst, most awkward walk ever. And then after you look like a fool, you fall and it hurts. You land on your butt on ice, which is harder than concrete, and it hurts. And you get up and you have a choice. I've looked like a fool long enough. Now I'm in pain. Why don't I get off? Or I'm going to try it again. And you walk a little bit further and you fall and it hurts even worse this time. You walk a little further and it hurts even worse the 3rd time. And you're going to have now you know I'm going to have a gigantic bruise for the next 3 weeks. But you keep doing that and you keep moving into awkward. And all of a sudden what begins awkward winds up producing graceful elegance on ice and a skillfulness. And it's only the leader. It's only the Christian. It's only the exemplary leader who's willing to say, I will brave the uncharted of awkwardness because I know at the end of it is a skill set and a culture that I want that I don't have. Why is somebody willing to brave the uncharted? Why is Christopher Columbus willing to set out, across an endless ocean where he can't see the other side, doesn't even know exactly if or when he'll ever hit it? Why is he willing to do that? Because he's saying what I have right now is not as good as what I believe I'll get to on the other side. And if I get there, I believe I'll be happier, more fulfilled, more joyful, more abundant than I am right now. Brave step down a long journey.
Man,
I love that. That's so good. Yeah, Seth Godin says a tribe, simply defined, is people like us do things like this. And if you make that clear that this is our tribe, people want to be in tribes and they want to be a part of something. And if you make it very clear, people like us do things like this, that tribe will self-sustain and be bigger than the person who starts it. All right. And that's what you want. You don't want to just be, pushing your self-care or the care for your team yourself. You want it to be a team effort.
So
what's a piece of advice you wish you had been given 10 years earlier?
Yeah. 10 years ago would have been right before I started this company. But I would say let's go with 9 years ago. I'm starting this company. What advice do I wish I would have been given then? I wish I would have known that there were people across not just the US, there's people across the world who are actually implementing a great business for a greater purpose. I did not think that those two things could exist side by side. I thought you're either a great business or you're a church.
Yeah.
I wish I would have known. I wish I would have heard stories. I wish I would have researched longer and harder and tried to figure out like, what's that right version of that for me? We're all different leaders. Like,
That's right.
Chris, you have different strengths to lead your company, to lead his way at work, to be a business as a ministry, to be a care-centered organization that are different than my strengths. It's going to look different. It's going to feel different. The activities that you run, the way that you say things will be different than me. And God's gifted you to lead your company in that way for that purpose for such a time as you have been given for that season. And if I would have just known that there was a version of that for me, I could have gotten started more soon, more quickly, sooner in my
Well,
company.
they also say, I don't know who said this. Y'all have quoted people. I can't tell you who said this, but the best time to plant an oak tree was 10 years ago, but the next best time is today, right? So it's just taking that next step. So to the listener who is trying to figure out, how do I get to where, where Brandon is, or how do I get to where, I want to be? It's one step after another, but taking that first one, that brave decision, as you said, to take that first step, eventually you'll look back and say, hey, I might not have done it 20 years ago, but at least I did it 10 years ago, and look at the impact on that. So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So good, Chris.
What's a top resource, like a book or a podcast or something that you'd recommend our listeners read or hear?
I read, it was one of the first kind of real big leadership books that I ever read was Patrick Lencioni's The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this inverted business model of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the lowest need on the chart, the one that all other dysfunctions of a business rise and fall on, is trust. And I just don't think that you can run a business as a ministry unless you have built trust with your people. They won't trust you to see it fulfilled. They won't come behind you to support it. They won't believe that it's for them because you haven't been for them as much as you want to be now. They have to see and they have to feel it. So when I read that book, I came back, I read it on a cruise. When I got back from the cruise, I bought every single Patrick Lencioni book that he's ever written.
Aren't they amazing?
They're amazing. They're amazing. And they're not business as a ministry, but they're the foundation to be able to create a culture that can sustain business as a ministry. You cannot roll this junk out in your company unless your people know, like, and trust you and your leadership team. Organizational health trumps everything else in business. That's Lencioni's tagline to his book, The Advantage. Organizational health trumps everything else in business. If that's true, that's organizational health is the starting place for all that is eternal ROI in business as a ministry.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. We've talked about a lot of things. I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability and just sharing all that you've shared. It's been inspiring. It's been just a great episode. What's that big thing that you want people to walk away knowing from this episode? What's the big moment, the one thought?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway today for me, even being reminded of everything that God's done, is for the business owner who says, I want what I've never had, or I want more of what we have right now. The mission statement of the church that I attend here in Gainesville, they're called SALT. The mission statement is helping people take their next step with Jesus. And Chris, this came up even in our pre-talk. I think the big takeaway for today is, what's the next step? Because there's even the mission of my church. It's not you're outside of Jesus and the next step is getting inside of Jesus. It's also for people who are in Jesus. What's the next step for them? So whether you're in business as a ministry, you're outside of business as a ministry, you're thinking about trying to do business as a ministry, what's the next step? What is that next brave step that you can take down a long journey of purpose, and then laying that in the hands of the Father and saying, I'm the branch, you're the vine. I have complete dependence on anything I do, any risk I take being in your hands, but I have unbounded confidence that you as the vine not only are able, but desiring to see that blessed. Abide in my love, much fruit, That is the heart of the Father, and he promises that to those who say, I'm the branch, you're the vine. Apart from you, I do nothing.
Yeah,
I love that.
So good. I'm going to add one thing to that, Joe, with you. One of the things we talked about in a group this morning, men's group, was passivity and the cancer that it is in a man. And what you're talking about, taking a next step, not just a man, okay, but any listener, taking the next step requires bravery in many cases. It requires courage. It requires faith, but it's stepping out of passivity, stepping out of the idea that we may know there's some things out there we could be doing, but right now it's just more comfortable to sit. Keep doing what we're doing. It's just easier. There's too, I can't even. And what you're saying, that next step is on you. God is not going to pick you up and move you on it. He's giving you the opportunity, and it's on us to step out of passivity, step out of comfort, and just take a step. And It doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to take a leap. Just take the step, and then the next one will come from that. And the next one, it's exactly what you're saying, but it's anti-passivity.
Yep.
At this point, it's not worth it to say no. It's not worth it to say no. God could absolutely see finished exactly and will see finish his exact plan as he desires it. But you'll be blessed if you say yes right now along the way.
Right.
It's not worth it to go without it. You take risks every day. Take the one risk that'll have the biggest eternal impact maybe you've ever seen in the history of your business.
Yeah, fantastic.
So good. Great way to end it. Brandon, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for just talking with it. This was inspiring. I love it. Anybody who has been listening or watching today, check out the show notes. We'll put lots of the things that Brandon has mentioned in the show notes, as well as links to his company. And I'm sure if you got any questions for Brandon, he'd love to answer those if you reach out. But again, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
You're awesome. Thank you, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Eternal ROI. If you like what you heard, we would love for you to take a moment and leave us a review and share an episode with somebody you know. If you are inspired to begin bringing the power of God's love into your workplace, take a moment and check out our free assessment at hwaw.com. It'll only take you a few moments. It'll give you a snapshot of what your company looks like and maybe some ways to move forward. Just click on the link in the show notes, and we'll see you next time.